The 1970s were full of songs that sounded perfectly innocent on the radio until you actually understood what they were saying. Parents had no idea. Kids sang along without a clue. Radio programmers played them constantly, often without registering what was hiding in plain sight inside the lyrics. Some of these songs disguised drug references behind cheerful melodies. Others buried real affairs, secret identities, or startlingly explicit content behind smooth production and warm vocal delivery. A few were so effective at hiding their true meaning that even devoted fans went years, sometimes decades, without realizing what they'd actually been singing along to. This is R&B Pulse Track, and here are the 10 famous songs from the 1970s that people didn't realize were far more scandalous than they sounded. Number 10. You're So Vain, Carly Simon, 1972. Carly Simon's biggest hit spent 17 weeks on the Billboard chart and reached number 1 in January 1973. A catchy, bitter kiss-off aimed at an unnamed, self-obsessed ex-lover. The song appeared on an album pointedly titled No Secrets, which turned out to be deeply ironic, since the identity of its subject became one of pop music's longest-running mysteries. For over 4 decades, speculation ran wild. Names floated by fans and journalists included actor Warren Beatty, Rolling Stones frontman Mick Jagger, producer David Geffen, and even Simon's own then-husband James Taylor, whom she married around the time the song was released. Simon herself gave interviews for years, dropping hints and denials in equal measure, clearly enjoying the mystery she'd created. In 2015, ahead of the release of her memoir, Simon finally confirmed part of the puzzle, telling People magazine, "I have confirmed that the second verse is Warren." Beatty, for his part, had already told a British newspaper years earlier with total confidence, "Let's be honest, the song is about me." According to Simon, he wasn't entirely wrong, but he also wasn't entirely right. What made the reveal even stranger was that Simon confirmed the song is actually about 3 different men, not one, and to this day, she has never named the other 2. Millions of people hummed along to a song whose entire premise was a secret Simon spent over 40 years refusing to fully give up, turning one breakup anthem into one of the most durable guessing games in music history. Number 9. Rocky Mountain High, John Denver, 1972.
He was born in the summer of his...
John Denver's ode to camping under a Colorado meteor shower with his wife Annie became one of his signature songs, gentle, wholesome, and built entirely on genuine awe at the natural world. Denver co-wrote it with guitarist Mike Taylor after a real camping trip near Aspen, describing shooting stars so bright they cast shadows across the campsite.
The forests and the streams, seeking grace.
Then radio stations started banning it. In the wake of a 1971 FCC warning discouraging songs that could be interpreted as promoting drug use, several stations flagged one specific lyric, "Friends around the campfire, everybody's high," and pulled the song from rotation entirely, assuming it was a coded reference to drug use rather than literal spiritual elation. Denver was furious about the misunderstanding, and he stayed furious about it for years. Testifying before Congress in 1985 about a proposal to label and review song lyrics, he directly cited Rocky Mountain High as an example of exactly the kind of overreach he opposed. This was obviously done by people who had never seen or been to the Rocky Mountains, he told lawmakers, and also had never experienced the elation, the celebration of life, or the joy in living that came with witnessing something as spectacular as a meteor shower with close friends. The irony runs in the opposite direction of every other entry on this list, a completely innocent song mistakenly assumed to be filthy, rather than a filthy song mistaken for something innocent. Decades later, once the controversy had faded entirely, Rocky Mountain High was formally adopted as one of the 2 official state songs of Colorado, a strange full-circle ending for a song once flagged by federal regulators. Number 8. One Toke Over the Line, Brewer and Shipley, 1971. Written almost as a throwaway joke while killing time backstage in Kansas City, the song's title line came directly from Tom Shipley telling his singing partner Mike Brewer that he was, in his own words, one toke over the line tonight. Brewer liked how the phrase sounded, built a full song around it, and the result became the biggest hit of the duo's career, cracking the Pop Top 10 in early 1971. It also became a genuine national controversy almost overnight. Vice President Spiro Agnew personally singled out the song, calling it blatant drug culture propaganda that threatens to sap our national strength, lumping it in with other counterculture-associated hits of the era. Several AM radio stations, wary of the political heat, quietly pulled the song from their playlists rather than risk backlash. Then something almost unbelievable happened. The Lawrence Welk Show, the single most wholesome, family-oriented program on American television at the time, featured a live performance of One Toke Over the Line by 2 of the show's own regular singers, apparently having no idea what the song was actually about. At the end of the performance, host Lawrence Welk turned to the camera and, with complete sincerity, introduced it to viewers as a modern spiritual. Brewer later reflected on the absurdity of the whole situation with genuine amusement. The Vice President of the United States had personally named them subversive to American youth, while at the exact same time, one of the country's most conservative entertainers had performed their drug song on national television and called it gospel music. Nobody, it turned out, could actually agree on what the song was, and that confusion, combined with the free publicity from both extremes, helped make it a hit twice over. Number 7. Angie Baby, Helen Reddy, 1974. Helen Reddy's third number 1 single, following I Am Woman and Delta Dawn, told the story of a lonely, special girl who spends her days lost in her own imagination, keeping company with nothing but the songs playing on her bedroom radio. On the surface, it plays like a tender, if slightly melancholy, character study of an isolated young woman. Songwriter Alan O'Day originally set out to write something much more conventional, a modern woman juggling family and work, loosely inspired by the Beatles' Lady Madonna. He later admitted the character felt boring in early drafts, so he started layering in strangeness, verse by verse, until the song became something else entirely. By the final verses, the song takes a genuinely unsettling turn. A local boy who has been secretly watching Angie through her window gets pulled physically inside her radio, and the lyrics strongly suggest she keeps him trapped there indefinitely, summoned out again only when she wants company. It's a plot description that reads less like a pop song and more like an episode of The Twilight Zone. Reddy herself always declined to explain what the song actually meant, saying publicly that she preferred letting listeners draw their own conclusions rather than settling the debate herself. Millions of people sang along to a warm, radio-friendly hit about a girl who may have permanently trapped a boy inside her radio for her own private company, and most of them never stopped to fully register what they were singing. Number 6. Undercover Angel, Alan O'Day, 1977. 3 years after writing Angie Baby for Helen Reddy, songwriter Alan O'Day scored his own career-defining hit with a song he privately referred to with a bit of self-aware humor, as a nocturnal novelette. It became his only major hit as a performer, topping the Billboard Hot 100 for 1 week in the summer of 1977. The lyrics describe a lonely man lying awake in bed at night, visited seemingly out of nowhere by a mysterious, seductive woman who appears beside him in the dark. O'Day's own description of the song's content was direct. It was, at its core, a fantasy sequence involving a nighttime seduction dressed up as a bouncy, upbeat pop single. The song's playful production, catchy ooh, 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 wee vocal hook, and light-hearted arrangement gave it the feel of a harmless novelty tune, rather than what it actually was underneath a fairly explicit description of a sexual fantasy, delivered with a wink over sunny, radio-friendly AM production that could air comfortably during daytime drive-time slots. It became one of the biggest hits of 1977, certified gold and beloved as a fun, catchy summer single. Most listeners heard a playful, slightly goofy love song about someone showing up out of the blue. Very few registered that O'Day had essentially smuggled an entire nighttime fantasy sequence onto mainstream pop radio 3 years after doing something even stranger with Angie Baby, and gotten away with both completely. We're right at the halfway point of 10 songs that fooled an entire decade of radio listeners, and the ones still ahead of us get significantly more direct. If you love discovering the hidden stories behind the songs you've heard 1,000 times, hit subscribe right now. It's free. It takes 2 seconds. Turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Now, let's get back to the countdown. The top 5 are where things get truly scandalous. Number 5. Kiss You All Over, Exile, 1978. Written by British hitmakers Mike Chapman and Nicky Chinn, the same songwriting duo behind a string of glam rock hits in the UK. Kiss You All Over became the biggest song of 1978 in America, spending 4 consecutive weeks at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for a Kentucky country rock band nobody expected to top the pop charts. Chapman was remarkably candid about exactly what he was going for. In an interview with Billboard at the time, he explained the song was built around a sensuous lyric line that Americans love, deliberately tailored for the U.S. market because, in his assessment, American listeners paid far closer attention to lyrical content than European audiences typically did. The lyrics themselves leave very little to the imagination once you actually sit with them. An extended promise of foreplay, building steadily toward an unmistakable conclusion, delivered over a smooth mid-tempo groove that blended soft rock with just enough disco polish to feel current for the era. The song's most direct line, promising to kiss you all over till the night closes in, was as close to spelling it out as a number 1 pop single got in 1978. Despite the massive success, and despite spending an entire month dominating the charts, the song sounded gentle and romantic enough that it slipped past an enormous number of listeners who heard nothing more than a pleasant, if slightly dated love ballad, the kind of song parents let play at wedding receptions, without ever pausing to consider exactly what was being promised in the lyrics. Number 4. You Make Loving Fun, Fleetwood Mac, 1977. Christine McVie wrote this bright, upbeat single for Fleetwood Mac's landmark Rumors album, one of the most celebrated, best-selling records of the entire decade. On the surface, sung with genuine warmth and buoyancy, it plays like one of the most straightforwardly joyful love songs Fleetwood Mac ever released. Behind the scenes, the reality was far more complicated. McVie wrote the song about an ongoing affair with the band's lighting director, Curry Grant, carried on while she was still legally married to her Fleetwood Mac bandmate, bassist John McVie, the very man who played bass on the finished recording of a song secretly written about someone else entirely. To avoid an even more painful confrontation within a band already fracturing under the weight of multiple simultaneous breakups, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham had also just split, and drummer Mick Fleetwood's marriage was collapsing. At the same time, Christine McVie reportedly told her estranged husband John that the song was actually written about her dog, rather than admit its real subject to his face. Rumors went on to become one of the best-selling albums in music history, built almost entirely on songs the band members had secretly written about each other's real affairs and breakups. All four of them recording new material together while living through the emotional fallout in real time, in the same room, without most listeners ever realizing the tangled personal history hiding behind every track. Number 3. Killer Queen, Queen, 1974.
She keeps motion.
Queen's first major hit outside the UK arrived with a bouncy, vaudeville-inspired melody, elegant piano work, and a chorus structured more like a classic Broadway showstopper than a rock single. It was, uncharacteristically for Freddie Mercury, written lyrics first, music second, the reverse of his usual process. Mercury was strikingly direct when asked what the song was actually about. "It's about a high-class call girl," he told an interviewer plainly. "I'm trying to say that classy people can be whores as well. That's what the song is about, though I'd prefer people to put their interpretation upon it, to read into it what they like." The lyrics build an elaborate character study around a woman of exquisitely expensive tastes, Moet champagne, caviar, a comparison to the notoriously out-of-touch French queen Marie Antoinette, someone guaranteed to blow your mind anytime. Mercury constructed an entire glamorous, self-possessed persona around a sex worker character, dressed up in some of the most elegant, theatrical production Queen ever recorded. Mercury deliberately encouraged listeners to draw their own interpretations rather than take his explanation at face value, and plenty of fans did exactly that over the decades, floating theories that the song was secretly about the band itself or about a music industry executive. But the song's own writer was never shy in his own interviews about exactly what character he'd actually built the entire song around. Number 2. Brown Sugar, The Rolling Stones, 1971. The Rolling Stones' first #1 single of the 1970s opens with a verse describing a slave ship bound for the cotton fields of New Orleans, and a plantation overseer whipping enslaved women at midnight, content that would be virtually unthinkable for a chart-topping single by any standard, then or now. Mick Jagger began writing the song under the working title Black Pussy while filming a movie in the Australian outback, later softening the title before release specifically to avoid restricting radio airplay. He has since confirmed the song operates on multiple layers simultaneously as a reference to heroin, commonly nicknamed brown sugar on the street, to interracial sex, and, in Jagger's own blunt words years later, the female anatomy. The whole mess thrown in. God knows what I'm on about on that song. Bassist Bill Wyman has said the song was at least partly inspired by singer Claudia Lanier, one of Ike and Tina Turner's backing vocalists, whom Jagger dated around the time the song was written, after the Stones toured alongside the Turners in 1969. Lanier herself later pushed back on readings of the song as celebrating slavery, telling reporters she believed Jagger was writing from the perspective of triumphant desire rather than endorsement of the historical horror described in the verses. The song hit #1 in the United States within weeks of its release and became a fixture of Rolling Stones concerts for the next 50 years, performed thousands of times to stadiums full of fans singing along to lyrics about slavery, rape, and sexual violence, set to one of the most instantly recognizable guitar riffs in rock history. The band finally stopped performing it live in 2021, following years of mounting criticism, a full 5 decades after most audiences had ever seriously reckoned with what they'd actually been cheering along to. Number 1. Torn Between Two Lovers, Mary MacGregor, 1976.
There are times when a woman...
Mary MacGregor's only #1 hit sounded on the surface like a soft, apologetic ballad about heartbreak and indecision, a woman gently confessing that her feelings are painfully split between two men, delivered in a hushed, sympathetic vocal that made the whole thing feel almost like an apology.
Just because there's someone else, you were...
The song was reportedly rooted in real personal history, drawn from songwriter Peter Yarrow's own experience of loving two women simultaneously and being genuinely unable to choose between them before he and co-writer Philip Jarrell shaped that experience into a pop single intended for a female vocalist.
As I can.
What made the song genuinely startling for mid-1970s pop radio wasn't a hidden metaphor buried in coded language. It was the sheer directness. The chorus doesn't dress up infidelity in vague poetic imagery the way most songs of the era did. It states plainly and repeatedly that the narrator is still emotionally and romantically involved with someone else, with no clear intention of ending that relationship, all delivered in a tone so tender that the confession barely registers as scandalous at all.
Even though she knows how much it's...
It topped the Billboard Hot 100 for 2 weeks in early 1977, played constantly on soft rock and adult contemporary radio stations, and became a staple at weddings, proms, and slow dance mixtapes throughout the decade for a song that was, at its structural core, an open, unapologetic admission of ongoing infidelity. Sung so gently and so sincerely that almost nobody registered the confession sitting right in the middle of it.